For a long time I thought I had no future at all, and that's one of the most demoralising and depressing and dispiriting things that you think, I might actually well be dead. But how's it going to go in the future? I can't say, but I think it can get better.
Hello listeners, my name's Toby and I am the host of Student Expert Podcast. This week we have for you James Sneddon. James Sneddon is a homeless artist who I bumped into by accident. I bought one of his prints and we just got into a conversation about art and I asked him to do an interview. So yeah, I think I'll let the interview talk for itself, so please enjoy.
Welcome to Toby's Student Expert Podcast. On this platform, Toby will engage with student experts in their field of study, passions and interests. My name is James Sneddon. My field of study is art and my expertise is surviving.
So I suppose we can start with the conversation that led me to buying your painting, and tell me a bit about the painting.
Well, the painting that Toby's bought is done with watercolours and oil pastels, and I did that picture in 2014. What I was trying to do very much drew from an American artist whose name I've now forgotten, because I was trying to copy one of his bits of work because I like the really brooding, heavy sky. It's got a very sort of oppressive storm, that big storm is going to happen, and it's very brooding, and that's what I was trying to do with that, and I think it works really well. But I've been homeless for how many years now? 2011, November, and in order to survive I started doing artwork because I found the DWP very unhelpful and obstructive, and I didn't want to deal with them anymore. It's impossible for me to get a proper job because I have no address, no bank account and no valid ID in this country. So
No valid ID?
My passport got nicked in Solly's Orchard, which is just over there.
Right.
I was doing a painting of Superman and some kids came over and started chatting to me, and while I was distracted one of them lifted my bag and it got my passport in it. That was my last bit of proper ID. I was in Glasgow, I lost my wallet which had my driving licence in, so they were my two bits of photo ID. I don't have them anymore. Now, if I go to a bank or try to engage with any kind of as soon as you say I don't have any ID, well, you can't prove who you are, so you cannot access these services. Because you need to have ID in this country, and if you haven't got any, you're a bit stuffed. And I don't like the services that are set up for homeless people because I haven't found them very helpful. It seems to be geared up for people who've either got a serious drug problem or other serious issues, and then they've got all kinds of things for you. But if you don't fit into their pigeonhole, they try and force you into it, and it's not suitable for everyone. They've got these various protocols worked out for certain issues. If you don't fit in comfortably into the little box, they'll try and shoehorn you into it. And it doesn't work,
So can I briefly go back to the painting? I'm not ignoring what you said, I'll come back to that. I found it interesting how you talked about the brooding, what is to come. So is that just because you said it was influenced by another artist? Is it just a reproduction, or is there some meaning to that brooding?
It's trying to.
Are you saying something by it?
Yeah, I wanted to get a slightly oppressive might be too strong a word, but that kind of sense that weather-wise the shit is going to hit the fan. There is going to be a proper big storm, and it's going to be a heavy one, and that was basically what I was trying to do there.
But in what terms, though? In your life? In society?
Well, you could relate it to anything. The thing about art, I believe it's subjective, and you can read what you like into it and project what you like into it and form your own associations. You're talking about Young earlier, and he said similar things about that. particularly with symbolism. And people go on about dream imagery, and he said, all those books, if you see a black cat or a snake or a crocodile or anything like that, it means this is... They're all bollocks, because it all depends on your personal history and the associations you formed in your mind over your lifetime. Art's the same. If you look at it and you can relate to it in some way, it has to be personal. The idea that there is a definite and single interpretation or meaning to anything isn't right, particularly with imagery, because it's all about what you get out of it.
Right.
Rather than... When you get people being really pretentious and go, this is about blah, 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 well, it is for that person, but it might not be for you. If you haven't read the spiel about it, you can go into a gallery and look at a piece of artwork and read whatever's relevant to you. And,
So, can I suppose, ask the ultimate question, what is art?
Creative expression.
Creative expression?
Yes.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be imagery. Obviously, it can be music or it can be literary. And I suppose I was watching the Secret Rendezvous people when I was saying the big issue today, and they'd like to do street dance or.
Oh right.
I'm not a massive. I'm not in. I can't dance for my life, save my life.
No,
but that's how these people like to express themselves, whether by pirouetting around and.
Oh, okay. I've not seen them.
Have you not seen them?
No.
They just turn up and then they start dancing in front of everyone.
Yeah.
And again, that's another form of art, isn't it? It's a sort of artistic expression. So I think art is just really about expressing something, whether it's personal, whether it has a religious meaning, because it can have any meaning.
Yeah.
Can't it?
Well, I've been thinking a lot lately, and I'm about to do a Masters in Cultural Studies in September.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking a lot about kind of art, spirituality, creative expression, also notions of the truth, religious connotations of, especially kind of Eastern.
I used to go to
being, and
I used to go to Buddhist meditation sessions years ago, which I found very positive, and I found their philosophy was positive and helpful, and their methods were positive and helpful, because they had the opinions, you don't have to believe us, you can try this for yourself, and if it suits you, great, and if it doesn't, great. Which is a bit different from a lot of the the three major religions is you believe us and do what we tell you, whether it makes sense or not. Which I don't think is elevating, or it doesn't actually lead people towards enlightenment. It leads them towards being controlled.
Yeah.
Which is not the same thing, is it, as being...
Well, that's the thing. I think when certain power structures see something like Christianity developing, they latch onto it, and even...
It's a form of social control. It has been used in that way in a big way. And
even Buddhism in certain countries has been used in the same way.
Yeah.
Particularly surprisingly around Siberia and its influence on and kind of hostility towards shamanism and stuff like that.
Same thing happened in Tibet. There was a thing called Bonpo, I think, which is a shamanic tradition, and there was a big dispute between Geshe, who was the leader of the NKT, the New Kadampa tradition. He was a Tibetan Lama who came over to Britain and set up his own thing here. And they had a falling out with the Dalai Lama ages because he was continuing to do the Dorji Shugden practices. He was considered Dharma protector, but some people say he has links back to the Bonpo, the shamanic tradition, and they want the Dalai Lama wanted the sort of image of Buddhism cleaned up, and they wanted those practices stopped.
So the Dalai Lama, they're saying the Dalai Lama has links back to the...
No. Dorji Shugden, who is a tantric deity, they're saying that this particular deity seems to have some sort of link back to the shamanic tradition from Tibet, and they would rather forget about that and concentrate on the Jason Carr per se, or Vajrayogini or Haruka, they're all more acceptable.
Right. And that's so. That is that the Dalai Lama that's saying that, or
the Dalai Lama said that the practices associated with Dorji Shugden should be ceased.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Geshe said he was going to continue doing the Dorji Shugden ceremonies. So there was a falling out between the Dalai Lama and Geshe. Kelsang Khyatso was his full name. I wouldn't say I'm a Buddhist, but I would say it was an influence on me. Right. Because I got quite interested in comparative religion, because I've got a lot of questions, and a lot of the conventional answers are not, they don't, they're right to a degree, but they don't give you that sense of, real sense of understanding, or what the fuck is this about? Do you know what I mean?
So does art give you any answers or questions?
It's a really difficult question, because, like I say, I think art's brilliant in the fact that it can cross most boundaries. It can be representational, it can be non-representational, it can have a personal meaning, it can have a religious meaning, it can have a political meaning, it can be purely an abstraction with no literal meaning at all. And then it's just about how it makes you feel when you look at it. So it can carry any kind of message. It's very hard to pin down, and I think that's what makes art so interesting. Yeah, that it can mean almost anything you want it to mean.
So what was it that got you doing art yourself, though? I know you said that you started doing art after you became homeless.
Well, no, I did it all my life. I did it as a hobby.
Okay. Right.
And that's all it was. It was a hobby when I was a kid. I used to like to do birds a lot. Right. That's why I used to draw a lot of pictures of when I was a kid, because I used to spend my summers on a farm. And I used to like to draw birds. And I always did it as a hobby. And when I was a bit older, when I did my O-levels, I went with science. So I stopped doing the art at school, but I still did it a bit as a hobby. And all my mates were artists and musicians, or both. Because all my mates were really quite arty. They're all in pub bands, wanting to be the next big rock bands. And none of them got anywhere or made it big. And a lot of them were into visual art as well. And all my mates were better artists than I was, to be quite honest. But, I mean, people don't generally continue with it. Because I ended up in trouble, and I ended up in prison, and I ended up on the street, and I got no way to support myself, and I had to do something, and I don't want to be a rent boy, I don't want to be a drug dealer, and I don't want to be a thief. The only skill I'd got that I could capitalise on and use to survive was art.
So
So that was necessity in that respect.
Yeah. So you're able to survive with your art.
I had to. That was all I'd got. And there's nothing like that to make you... 2014 was when I did my most pictures, and that's all I did. I sat in the library and I tried to copy other people's pictures to try and understand how they got the effects they got and how they worked. And I've done stuff that's just completely out of my own head, and stuff that I make up. And I've tried to do... I was constantly trying to appeal to different sorts of people. Like, this will sell, this will sell, this will sell. And often it doesn't. And then you go, fuck it all, I'm just going to do what I want. And then people like it. And that was quite rewarding as well. Because people aren't going to like this at all. They're going to think it's weird. And then they go, I quite like that. And they'll buy it, which is quite... And it's really quite reassuring in a way that, people don't hate you as much as you think that they do, and then look down their nose on you quite as much as you might think they do because of your circumstances, and they're actually open to... I'm
going to ask a couple of questions, and if you don't want to answer them, that's fine, and you don't want it included, that's fine. I see you drinking there. Yeah. And also, can you say anything about your life before you became homeless and what made you homeless, and the prison as well?
This has happened to me twice. I was homeless in the it was about through 96 to 99 I was homeless, and I ended up getting sectioned and detained under the Mental Health Act. Okay. And then I ended up back in a normalish life after that. I got back into living in a flat. I had a full-time job in a laboratory because I'm a qualified food scientist of all things.
Wow. Amazing.
And so I ended up going back into that and doing microbiology for 6 years. And then my life went tits up again.
Yeah.
I ended up in the fucking prison, which I'd never been to prison before. And I was terrified because I thought it would be like the really nasty films, and I was going to get battered every day and bummed every day. And it was just going to destroy me.
Yeah.
So I was absolutely terrified when I went in. But it's not as bad as that. Well, I suppose if you're a very controlling psychopath type person and you're deliberately put in an environment where you can't control that environment, then it must be very difficult.
Yeah.
But if you're somebody that doesn't rub people up the wrong, because if you don't fucking piss people off, you have to do something. If people are going to kick, you do get some people who will start for no reason, but generally you need to give them a reason before they'll start.
Yeah.
So, and if you don't do that, if you try not to wind people up, you can probably get through. Because a lot of the trouble starts with somebody's got something off someone and not paid them back. That's the usual reason people, get a kicking or whatever, or they've said something that's really upset someone.
Yeah.
So if you watch your mouth and you don't fucking rip anybody off, the chances of you getting fucked over badly aren't too bad. However, if you go out of your way to take the piss and wind people up and then fucking rip them off, you are probably going to get the fucking crap kicked out of you.
Yeah. Would you say anything about what brought you to prison, or do you?
I got done for firearms offences.
Okay.
But I was fitted up a bit because somebody told the police I got a semi-automatic handgun in the flat. I hadn't. I got an air pistol.
Right.
3 armed response units got scrambled and surrounded the building I was in, and
For an air gun.
Well, they didn't know that. They believed I'd got a proper weapon. It just got out of hand. There was a 7-hour armed siege. I eventually gave in and came out.
Okay. How did that? With an air gun, how did that happen?
They believed I'd got a proper weapon.
And you
hadn't.
You implied that you had?
No, I didn't imply that I had. I refused to come out and told them to shoot me because I knew if they'd gone to the trouble of getting all these guys with guns out, I was on my way to the neck. And I was scared of it to the extent where I'd rather have been shot than been put in that environment because I was...
Oh, okay.
I didn't want to go into that.
Yeah.
And my life was already fucked up. I jacked my job in. My alcoholism had got out of hand. I was getting beaten up on a regular basis. I'd been on the end of 2. The only reason I bought the air pistol was because I'd been on the receiving end of aggravated burglaries. I'd been attacked on the doorstep several times. I'd been hospitalised 5 times. I'd effectively been targeted, and nobody would lift a finger to defend me or get me out of there. So I bought myself an air pistol. So the next time somebody tries to kick the door in or puts the window through, rather than me getting beaten up and robbed, I've got something to protect myself with. It wasn't for robbing people or intimidating people. It was a last resort thing.
Yeah.
Because having the shit kicked out of you and being left for dead is really horrible, and that was happening on my own doorstep.
Yeah.
And nobody would do any fucking thing about it. So what do you do? And the people who were doing it knew that nobody would do anything about it, which just gave them a licence to keep coming back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, fuck it, I'll go and get myself a weapon. No intention of robbing anybody or intimidating anybody or anything like that. And then, of course, some bright ass rings them up and says, I've got a fucking semi-auto 9mm in there. And so they get 3 armed response units out. I didn't believe them, because people had banged on the door and said, police, open up, and I opened the door, they kicked the shit out of me and robbed the place.
Yeah.
So when these armed police come out, I went, fuck off, I don't believe you. Until I went and looked out the window, and there's 2 Land Rovers in the car park. One guy's leaning over the bonnet with an HK, and the other one's got one of those beanbag guns. And I go, fuck me, this is real.
Can we wait a minute until these people go past?
Oh, sure.
Just for the noise. And the tiny dog. Talk a little bit about your drinking, if that's okay.
My friends when I was a teenager, we were all heavy drinkers, and it was a very social thing. It's what we did. We went to the pub and we got drunk. Later on in life, it became a coping mechanism. If life wasn't working out, if I wasn't happy, I'd drink heavier and heavier, and just try and it's a sort of search for oblivion. It's like Yeah. Everything's so shit, I'm just going to get so fucked up I don't care about anything anymore. Next time you get really drunk, you don't give a flying fuck.
Yeah.
But the only trouble is, you generally make all your problems worse in the process. You get into trouble, you get into arguments, you waste your money, and you wake up feeling like shit, not knowing what you've done, and you've probably done something fucking stupid because you're not happy and you're angry.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those spiral things whereby, and the more you fuck up, the more you drink, and the more you drink, the more you fuck up, and you run around a sort of vicious circle until you end up in a crisis situation.
Well, I was a binge drinker myself.
Yeah.
I didn't get into the scrapes that I know a lot of people have done, but
it's kind of very easy to get into trouble when you're.
Well, that's the thing. My drinking was mainly kind of isolating. Really, that was my trouble. It was kind of shutting myself off from people. Have you ever tried to do anything to address it?
I've done 3 detox programs, but when it got to the point where I was living and the fact that I was coming under, for want of that word, attack and being harassed and attacked and robbed on a fairly routine basis, I couldn't handle being in that situation, and it didn't matter who I went to and said, you have to get me out of this building. And I remember going into hospital to do a detox program which lasted a week, and I said, if I have to go back to that fucking flat, it's not going to be 2 days before I'm so anxious and I feel so threatened and I can't handle this at all because it's gone too far. I've been hospitalised 5 times through violence. I'm just going to hit the bottle again. If you can't get me away from this fucking building, I'm not going to stop drinking because it's the only thing I've got that can actually shut my brain down. You know, when you drink to that extent where you just want to knock yourself unconscious so that nothing fucking matters because you're oblivious to all of it, that's what my drinking got like. So it wasn't a social thing. It wasn't a thing that you got any pleasure out of. It was a thing you did purely to knock yourself out. So the whole world just fucked off.
Yeah.
And it was totally different from what I was like when I was young, when it was a social thing and you did it with your mates and you had a laugh. This was a totally negative way of drinking. And when you talk about, you said it was an isolating, this was really isolating because you got so drunk and I was so resentful and angry and frightened that if you came near me when I was drunk, I'd be really, really obnoxious.
Yeah.
And I'd try and make people leave me alone.
Yeah.
Rightfully or even if they were nice people, even if they were trying to help me, I'd be nasty to them. Not necessarily violent, just rude and horrible. Because I didn't trust anybody and I didn't like anybody and I didn't like what was happening to me. Yeah. And all I wanted to do was to knock myself out.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely get that. Why do you continue to drink? I
have a natural predilection for alcohol. Unfortunately, I've done it since I was a teenager. I'm nowhere near as bad as I was when I was, say, like in my flat, because today I've got to go to work tomorrow. I'm gardening in the morning for a lady in Winchey, and and then I'll be selling the big issue later in the day. I have to be sober when I go to work, and I have to be capable of doing what I have to do. So I'm not going to get fucked up tonight. I will have a couple of beers, and because I know I've got to be there, I've got to be out of my tent at 8 o'clock in the morning. For a long time I was what you call a functioning alcoholic.
Yeah.
What I do, particularly when I used to ride a motorbike, you have to be capable of passing a breathalyzer test.
Yep.
So I would calculate how many units of alcohol I'd had when I finished work, and to be clear, to be able to pass a breathalyzer test if I was stopped by the police. And and people say that's because you're an alcoholic. You're actually calculating how many units you're consuming and how many units you can consume, so that you know that when you go to work, you can't get nicked.
I mean, you said yourself you're an alcoholic, but you, especially now, you're able to put that control on at certain times.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about that and how?
It's a necessity. You can't afford to be pissed out of your head all the time. Because I've been homeless for a while, I know the people who are, if they're not pissed out of their head or stoned out of their head, that's because they're trying to find the money to get pissed or stoned out of their head, and they don't do much else. And I find that whole lifestyle really depressing. I'm glad I got into my art again because it gave me something, a positive focus, and in that respect it's been a fantastic thing. because it gives me, and I could lift myself out of whatever negative mental and feelings I had, because I would just concentrate on doing something creative, and I found it really, really therapeutic to do that.
Do you drink when you do art?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. So you don't have to drink when you do art.
No.
That's interesting.
You can sit down and do a picture. You can't. It's not no point trying to do it when you're drunk, because it's, you know what, like being drunk. You might think you're great at everything, but you'll just fuck it up, because you're just a fucking disaster area when you're pissed. Everybody is.
Yeah.
I mean, you might think you're Superman, or you might think you're the most funny, hilarious person ever, or the hardest bloke in the world, but in fact, you're generally making a twat out of yourself. But in your own little view of things, you think, oh, I'm top dog or whatever. And generally, you're making an arse of yourself.
Yeah.
Because you've all seen that. You'll see a group of lads who are really fucking off their heads, and you go, even if you know them and you're normally matey with them, you go, I can't be bothered with these guys today. I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go off on a tangent, because you just know what they're like when they're pissed, and you'd rather not be around them.
Yeah. This little break in recording is a bit of a shame, really. Someone came along that knew James, someone from the streets. I don't know if she was homeless, and she didn't realise we were recording, and she was quite charismatic, quite jovial, but obviously an addict. She talked a little bit about speed, and also she'd just come out of prison. Unfortunately, the reason for the interlude is that at the end, even though she was still quite jovial, she asked for the recording not to be publicised, so that's why that's here. So back to the recording, thanks.
And the unfortunate thing is the worst drugs are prevalent. I mean, it's the easiest drugs to get are crack and heroin.
Okay.
Well, particularly in the homeless circles, because if you are homeless, it will only be, you go into a new town, a new city, even villages now, it's probably going to be minutes after you arrive that somebody will sidle over to you and ask you if you want any brown or any fucking white.
Yeah.
I don't use either, because I don't like them at all.
Yeah. Going back to alcohol and going back to art, what do they both give you? Do you get enough from both of them?
Art gives me a sense of achievement. If I do a picture, I mean, and originally I was very insecure about all my artwork. I'd do a picture and go, nobody will like it, it's not good enough. I'd see all the mistakes in it, because I'd done it and I hadn't quite got the effect I want, or quite got the colour I want, or all the rest of it. I mean, people just think it's shit. And then you get positive comments from people, and that was really, really, really helpful to get, to be appreciated, and to that sense that what you're doing isn't shit, and you're not just a useless twat. Because I kind of needed that. Alcohol doesn't really give me anything. It's just a bad habit.
Yeah. But what I'm saying about the response you gave me was that what you get from art is that even though you think you're shit, you get compliments.
Yeah.
That's an interesting response.
Yeah. And you get positive
feedback
from people. If you do something and they like it, then you can start to increase your self-esteem. Because if you've got to the point where you're really insecure and you feel worthless and you feel the world's against you, and I've had all those kind of feelings, and because when I do my art, I lose myself in it, because I don't think about this, that, or the other. I'm concentrated fully. It's like meditation. You're concentrating fully on what you're doing, and you forget about this has gone wrong, that's gone wrong, and you do something and you think, that looks all right. I think it's all right. I don't know if other people like it or not. I hope they do, but they might think it's shit. And you put it out, and then people start saying, I fucking like that, mate. That's really cool. And then your self-esteem starts to improve.
You've gone into more detail about the response you get from people and the approval you get from people.
Everybody wants
but
to
you did speak about the process of art, and when you're doing it, that you lose yourself in it.
Yeah. What made me think about it is when I was in prison, I tried to do as much art as possible, and it's how I survived in the prison system. Is that I used to do art for whoever was, usually ended up doing portraits for whoever was Mr. Big on whatever wing I got put on, because I was quite good. And I was cheaper than anybody else and quicker than anybody else. So if they wanted a picture of their kids done or a picture of their girlfriend done, they would. I mean, and I was cheaper than everybody else, and I was more desperate than everybody else. I got no money coming in, and that helped me survive in that particular
Did you not
system.
get any support when you were in there?
No, I had never had any visitors, never made any phone calls or anything like that. I was on my own, and that was it. And that's one of the reasons I was so scared, because I was in a completely I didn't know. So when I was in Wood Hill, which is a double A category prison, some bloke comes to me and says, "You know what, mate? You're paranoid." I said, "What the fuck do you expect? I'm in a really hostile environment. I don't know anybody, and there's some of the most dangerous people in the country in here. I think being paranoid is an appropriate." And paranoia in that respect is a survival mechanism and a defence mechanism. For a long time I thought I had no future at all, and that's one of the most demoralising and depressing and inspiriting things, that you think, I might not actually well be dead, because nothing good is ever going to happen to me. Or if you live in a world which is constantly, I'm scared, these people are going to hurt me, I'm not sure what's going to happen to me tomorrow, and that's horrible and demoralising and dispiriting. But unfortunately, it's like that for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But how's it going to go in the future? I can't say, but I think it can get better.
I really enjoyed interviewing James, and so surprised that I got such a great interview out of meeting someone just randomly. And someone in the position that James is in currently. He was so brave and so generous to tell us about not just his art, but his personal situation, being homeless, going to prison, and also being quite an intellectual amongst people that are not necessarily as intellectual. I don't think he meant to say that he was more intelligent, but I know people from a working class background and from a lower class, kind of criminal class background, might be just as intelligent, but not educated and don't have the same attitude towards certain intellectual pursuits. So, thank you so much, James. This week's episode, we will be joining a Brazilian writer that now lives in Lisbon, and he spoke of the introduction of a writer called Maria Gabriela Lanço. That introduction changed his relationship towards language and also changed his life. So I look forward to publishing that in the next episode. Thank you very much. Please remember to like and subscribe on iTunes and the other places that this is available. I'll post all the links on my WordPress page and my Facebook page and my Twitter feed, so the links will all be available to you. So thank you very much, and I'll see you soon. Bye.